I'm a high school student in the Bay Area, and I got into token engineering about a few months ago, but I wanted to join a study group just to get a little faster at learning through TE Academy.
Okay, where you at? Like in your own pace? Which module you are at?
So I finished module one yesterday, and I passed the test, and then now I'm on module two.
Congratulations! Good
Yeah.
job!
Thank
That's
you.
nice. Okay, we're in module 5 right now, but I think it's kind of like easy to jump in because we're right now just doing a lot of reading. And we're just trying to keep each other on track because module 5 has just like so much reading. You thought module 1 had a lot of reading. Forget module 1. Module 5 is the mountain to climb, right? And good morning, Grayscale. And so yeah, we're just going through this bit by bit. I'm going to share my screen because I have a little bit of an OCD thing
What are you
going on here.
studying?
Yeah,
What did you say your name is? Karen.
Kiran,
Kieran.
Kiran. Kiran.
Kiran, yeah.
Okay. So wait, are you Indian by any chance?
Yeah.
Indians recognizing each other across the
No,
world.
I was just trying to think that is that an Indian name? Yeah.
Okay, and
I have no.
Artem wrote in, and finally I hear you. Okay, good. That's good. Okay. Yeah, anyone wants to say hi? So, hi, my name is Stella. I'm co hosting this with Rohan. I'm in Peru, but I'm German. Rohan, you want to say hi?
Oh, yeah. Hi. Am I unmuted? Yeah, I am. Hi, I'm Rohan from Bombay. I'm really sick, so I don't want to do too much talking. But yeah, I'm from Bombay, and I guess, officially a token engineer now, right? I
Yeah,
guess I can say
you
that.
made it. You're
Yeah.
officially one.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where I am.
Lutra, you want to say hi?
Hi, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Because there was a message, my mic wasn't working, and I was wondering because I thought everything's fine. So, yeah, here I am.
Good. Saying hi. Grayscale, you want to say hi?
Yes, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
and
I have some
I
background noise with the
oh,
lawnmower, but
oh
I'm
really?
coming from New York. Yeah.
I don't hear any background noise. You're all good.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so module 5, right? Ton of reading, as I mentioned. So the reading is structured in like, this looks really scary now that I zoomed out. The reading is structured in like 2 parts. One is like general topics. So we've already went through those, right? A lot of them have like overlaps. So don't be scared getting started with those. A lot of them have overlaps. And if you're having a hard time, so some of the other students who cannot come here every week, they've been just hitting me up here and there and be like, that was a little bit difficult. Like, I'm not sure if I really understood that, and I helped them out. So if you feel like you need this, you can do this anytime with either me or Rohan, right? And we just entered the second part, which is concept study. So this is like more deep on a specific topic. And we have gone through algorithms as policy that contained a few videos and articles, but not as much. And I have not finished the ones that had to do with hearing, because I don't know, apparently everyone has such a chill time listening to podcasts while working. I really don't. Like, it annoys everything out of me that it could possibly do. So these are the 3 I haven't
In fact,
done.
it's the opposite for me.
Huh?
I can, I even books I read on like audiobooks. I can't
Yeah,
read as much as I can listen.
you're a weird person. I love you, but you're also a weird person. It's okay. And we've completed like autonomy, the ones on autonomy. So how have you guys been doing with those? Let's just ask the bad questions first. How's it been going? Anything interesting you guys picked up, or anything that you really appreciated in these articles? now is the time to speak up. Or maybe you've come across them before because they're all very much out there. So maybe it's something you've looked at before. Grayscale, you seem always like you have an opinion.
Yeah. Um, it's funny because at first when I was going through all these stories, it seems like it was like a bit of a, like review, going through everything. I've seen a little bits and pieces of something, but but since I've been in the group here and we've gone really into each one, I've kind of picked up, like a few gems, here and there, which is quite nice. And it is going through a very systematic and I think well thought out way of doing it. So
Yeah, right.
so I'm kind of caught up as far as I mean I did, like I said last week, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with the whole frames.
This one, I believe, right? Disambiguating.
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes,
remember.
because it gave some insights on really how to, once you start talking to stakeholders and things like that, what question do you ask? It gave a lot of guidance to really, getting the job done as a token engineer. So that's, I was kind of, floundering a little bit of, okay, so, because I'm used to protocols, like I said before, and procedures. So if I have some guidelines to go with on, how to, guide other,
Yeah, I just wanted to say
organizations,
it
it's
feels a
helpful.
little bit like a recipe, right? This article, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it is a recipe, and you can, add your own ingredients and change it up a little bit, but still it gets you in the ballpark, I think. So once you're there, and then you can kind of, stamp your vision on it.
Mm. Yeah,
It just makes it easy for me to start, I guess. That's what.
okay. Yeah, no, I remember you were recommending this, so I went extra deep for myself into this one. I really enjoyed it. Anyone else who had a Lutra? Did you get to the
Yeah.
point of reading the
Yeah,
materials?
I mean, I succeeded in finishing reading all the text in Algorithms as Policy and Autonomy as well. And well, I liked the more philosophical text, the threat of algocracy. And I think this fits for modern societies, especially for digital innovation and all the things that might come up with AI
What?
and use cases.
Yeah. Was this the
And
one you enjoyed, Algorithms as Policy, or was there another specific one you liked?
that one was good. And I liked the threat of algocracy.
Oh, okay, got you.
Because it discusses some, yeah, typical, more philosophical problems with regard to the interconnection between machine learning and algorithmic decision making and the role humans play, who will play in the future, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think this is quite fitting for our modern times.
Absolutely agree, and it actually inspired me for my educational project to do an Instagram post, like first on the soft side of, hey, what is an algorithm, right? Because that's our audience. Our audience doesn't necessarily know, and then do a deeper one that specifically touches on hidden bias in algorithms. There was a lot of inspiration there, honestly, to go deeper and also to really consider like the systems we put in place. How do they really impact people, right? Because often we are so, and there's no difference between designers and engineers when it comes to this. We're so enchanted by the idea of doing something for the sake of seeing if it works, right? That we often don't really think through how this can also negatively impact a lot of people. And I think it's, it might feel like a repetition, right? We discussed this last week. It was like, every article feels like it's repeating a little bit of the former article. But I think there's a good reason for it, because this is something that essentially, I think they want to burn this in our brains, right? That whenever we develop, we go back to this and we're like, hey, wait, maybe, if we code it that way, we're not doing ourselves or people we're deploying this towards to a favor. And I think this is why this is actually a very valuable topic that they, or made into a topic. Like, it's good. It's food for thought. I think that's the English phrase, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe giving a little bit of a summary to Dashing Psychedelic Llama. I really like that nickname. So who wants to kind of like summarize a little bit what this whole algorithms as policy topic is about? Anyone feels like they can do it? Lutra, Grayscale?
Well, it's 1 week ago.
No, it's fine. We can, maybe we can do it together. So what I remember from this, right? Because for me it's also been spread over 2 weeks. But the key facts I remember is that algorithms, as they impact our daily lives already, right? Whenever we pick up a device, our lives are being impacted by it. Whenever we interact with an application, same thing. And as we are building algorithms, and we are doing that by using the blockchain and all the tools that we're just educating ourselves on recently, we share a responsibility for thinking through how we are creating unintentional bias, right? All of us are humans, all of us have opinions, and these opinions, they find their way into code as well. And we need to be careful about that. I think this is like, the kind of like the warning message that all of these articles are meant to give. Obviously, you can tell I've done a lot of more summarizing, but I think this is like the gist of the message that I want to take out of all of these. And then when it comes to the autonomy one, I think it's more about, like the structure of what it means to self-govern. But yeah, I could use some help on these ones. Anyone that wants to jump in, give me a hand.
Real quick, for the first part that you mentioned, is that like the consequences of the energy usage of Bitcoin as an example? Because those are unintended consequences.
I think it falls under that. Yeah, I think it does.
Okay.
But
Although it's broader, I would say that it's probably a broader argument that we're making, which is that
Okay.
I think something along the lines of, this I think I've repeated earlier, but I keep feeling like social media has changed our generation so much in the last 10 years, culturally, socially, in every way. Our politics is run on social media practically. So like deciding the algorithms that decide news feeds and all of those things are political decisions at the end of the day. And I think maybe that's what we're getting at, that these systems that we're building aren't purely technical. They're algorithms, and we're looking at it from a purely engineering lens, but they're also they have a social or a cultural impact, and therefore like a lot of the articles call it socio-technical systems, and we have to treat them as such. We have to treat them with the like ethical responsibility that comes with dealing with humans in the loop.
But I think Kieran is not wrong about the unintended consequences. I think even though it might not have been a specific part about algorithms as policy, right? That's different. But it's still an ethical responsibility to think of stuff like energy consumption, because in the end, it's just like, it's a longer path, but in the end, it influences politics as well, right? So for example, right now, the people who don't want to see all of this succeed, right? Their main argument is essentially, how bad Bitcoin is for the environment. and that it's like kind of a monster that cannot be stopped anymore because the incentive mechanism is too strong, right? And yeah, you're right, it's not specifically part of this chapter, but it's still not wrong to think of it as like just a longer route to impact policy.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, I didn't want to say that your example was wrong. I was just saying that it's one of the examples out of many.
That would be fine
Um,
though if I'm wrong.
okay.
Just
No.
saying.
I think Kiran had a good point, which was that it is obviously that is a big part of the conversation here, but I think it's broader in the sense of like that the energy consumption is one of the arguments within what we are talking.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
then
it has.
and then oh,
Sorry,
you can go.
you go first.
Okay. This is for the second part of the question, so I can wait for your explanation.
Well, it's funny because I was about to say about for the first part of the question, what brings to mind is just is because when you're saying it's this constant thread of like reflexivity, meaning that like you're part of when you like these algorithms. We have to be mindful the fact that we're also part of making that decision when you're looking at these like algorithms. And that's something that's come up in a few times. So when I read this, and like when you're in like when you're trying to like evaluate the market, you have to be conscious of the fact that you're also contributing to the market. So your decision is involved in it. So these algorithms are the same way. When we say that they're biased or skewed or things like that, but our view is also part of that unbalance or that different way of thinking. So that's pretty much how I look at it. As I think George Soros kind of coined that term of like reflexivity, but it's come up in other articles before. So
Sometimes I wonder
if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you mean you get the information from the system, maybe market prices on the stock exchange, but by acting, you're also part of the system and you're feeding it with additional information, right?
Yes, exactly.
I'm still wondering. We talked even last week a lot about the possible dangers of those systems, but I'm still looking for some kind of solution. What would be our, let's say, quintessence of it? We still need a human review process, or how can we handle this problem of bias algorithms?
To be
Actually, to add on,
yeah, go.
oh, I was gonna say to add on to that problem, even if you did come up with a solution and the algorithm doesn't necessarily act in the way you think it's acting, how can you determine whether or not it is working or not? Because you could be thinking on like a 5-year time scale and the algorithm could be working on a 30-year one. So short-term outcomes may not necessarily line up with long-term ones. So is there like is this lesson specifically about determining whether or not the algorithms are lined up with the intent, or is it just looking at whether or not the algorithm works over a certain time period?
I think, I mean, a good system would have both, like, and maybe that's the argument. I think most of TE fundamentals is about pointing out the problems, is what I've felt personally, and giving us some directions about how to find the solutions. Because even the way Lutra put it out, like, I have a similar issue, which is I don't exactly concretely know what is the exact way through which I can verify, test, or work with these systems. Like, how can I make sure that these issues don't happen, other than just thinking about it deeply? And they've given us some uh, frameworks through which we can think about these systems better. Some ways that I have found personally is, yeah, thinking about it temporally, because you want to think about it in a short term, medium term, long term time frame. and you want to think about it from every stakeholder's perspective also. Um, a very um, one way I've also found personally working with this is that you have to work. So like even when I'm working with token systems for different when I was doing consulting, um, I realized that we would think about token systems in three phases. We would think about it in a short term phase where like currently we are doing airdrops and we're getting people on board. Like this is just a rapid growth phase. Then we are thinking about a medium term and then a long term. Because the thing with token systems is you're trying to make the rules transparent to everyone right from the get-go. Um, Instead of changing the rules in the middle the way that Web2 companies have been going. So it's a harder task to work with, but it might be worthwhile in certain situations. So I think like time is definitely a factor you have to think about. I think
That's a
aligning
good
with
one.
intent, of course, that's the goal to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a strong one, and it's also in, I mean, in the context of how everything is developing right now. It's, I think, accountability. It's also mentioned very often, right? And accountability comes from transparency. So this is currently, I think, the biggest problem with most algorithms out there touching people's lives. They are not transparently constructed. No one knows how they work. Like, even though, Twitter, for example, published their how does our algorithm work kind of thing, right? To make people like more engaged with the system. It's like, yeah, but what does this actually mean, right? Like, how can an everyday consumer now rely on these 5 key facts and be content with how they use Twitter? Actually, a lot of people that I know, they've like completely stopped using Twitter, right? They're moving on because it's so annoying that you don't really understand the system that you're using or that we're being exposed to still, make it sound okay. I think this is accountability is the biggest issue right now in the algorithms that are being deployed and applied to society. And then there's like various solutions as to when we're constructing algorithms. So one they give is even before this section, right? They're saying, I think it was in an article by Trent from Ocean Protocol, verifying token-based systems, right? This is what Roro also mentioned. I think constructing frameworks and working on tools and also supporting tools like CutCut, right, to help us do this. I think it's very important. Kieran, you just finished module 1. I think it was a module 1 where Trent made, I think it was Trent or was it Michael? I'm not sure. One of them makes a strong point about, the fact that most engineering tools, they cost a lot of money, and they are also they cost a lot of money making them, right? But also like using them costs you a lot of money. So a lot of like token engineers wouldn't even have, with that kind of standard, wouldn't even have the access to these kind of tools. So supporting like public goods and open source systems such as CutCut and other systems that are being developed to help us verify, that's I think a good thing. So whenever we see, for example, I posted this in our study group channel, there's a Gitcoin funding round. So take a look at their, I haven't found something that I feel really excited about, but maybe you do, right? Have a look at this and see if you want to, pitch in like some money, right, for these things to be developed. Like it really matters, I think.
CatCat is a part of it, so CatCat should be supported for sure.
Oh, right. No. CatCat is a part of it. Sorry, I feel obviously excited about CatCat. Sorry, it was more like about like most entries. I felt there was like a missing structure to it, right, which made it like also hard to compare. So if one has a summary, right, that's really nicely and well written, and another one has a bullet point list that comes straight out of ChatGPT, it's like, can I trust these people to really like build something that's valuable for this? So it makes me wonder if there is not a comparable structure. But yeah, that I'm weird. You don't have to listen to me, obviously. Hi, Strata. Welcome.
Morning.
There are also more solutions that they mention. Anyone wants to talk more about the solutions that are being mentioned? because there's more. So, for example, encountering bias, right? There are some measurements we can take. Anyone feels good enough to talk about it?
I just wanted to point out this. There's a book I'm reading called Escaping from Model Land, or Escape from Model Land. Really nice book. It's very similar to like the stuff about bias that we're studying. We're reading about, which is
Oh wait, I put the.
You
I
be
put
so
an
kind to
Amazon link.
put it in our
I
Yeah.
will do it.
shelf?
It's okay. I will do it.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, it's basically about how even the models we build are models we have even in our minds about how the world works. Um, all of them have assumptions and ideas, and like the book is about just constantly understanding different scenarios and how to like question your assumptions. Pretty interesting. Yeah, it's the same author.
How far are you in the book, Rohan? How far
I've
into it?
jumped around in places that I liked, so it is quite non-linear, my progress.
Yeah. Do they talk about, like, just curious about, so it talks about the risks. I think it's something I would be interested in reading. Does there a section for the risks and the sort of like, the causal relationships and stuff that can arise?
I think it's more about giving a vision as to how to look at models, how to look at algorithms, how
Okay.
to like basically looking at models as metaphors uh, more than like a reality or something. So I think it's just the same stuff hammered again and again, but also in different contexts. So it makes you realize how many assumptions we have about the world.
Thank you.
But a lot of it is also machine learning heavy in terms of social media and stuff like that. But I don't think I've reached that part, so I don't know. But I have seen certain sections which are very clearly like talking about the machine learning models that we deal with.
Everyone giving thumbs up. Okay, that's good. Thank you for the recommendation. I also added it to the bookshelf. I figured you would want to add it later to Notion as well, right? Okay. So, what else was there? There was some more interesting stuff. I'm just not quite sure right now where I found it. Oh, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't know. So I didn't know about these three people, like Kohlberg, Takis Fotopoulos, or Cornelius Castoriadis. I didn't know about those people, so I took a look at, who they are, what they did, right, or are still doing. And also there was.
Where was that exactly? I mean, in what context were they brought up?
They were mentioned in the context of the Wikipedia article autonomy. This is where they found their way into the scenario. I just thought, same as you, I was thinking like maybe there's like some good books by those people that I should maybe read. Because in the end, governance is a philosophy topic, right? Like it's always been since ancient history. That hasn't really changed. And it's also kind of like, sometimes I wonder if we had the power to really look at all the patterns of all of history so far. We don't, right? Because not everything is like put into like correct data sets. But I sometimes wonder how many things actually have like the absolute same pattern. I feel there's been a lot of repetition. I'm reading right now this book. Wait, let me get that. It's a little bit further away from all of this, but not too much actually. It's Histories of Nations. It's kind of like a very condensed summary about some of the, I guess, greatest countries, or all countries, literally, I guess, almost all countries of the world and their history, right? And it's like
Who's the author?
The author is like a lot of different people per country. It's a different person.
Oh, wow. What?
Yeah, so
That's
it's
so
really
interesting.
interesting. And it's also interesting the choice. So, you know how sometimes if you give very young kids the exercise, you know, to draw the world, they have a tendency, if they are from Europe, to draw Europe really, really large, right? And then, you know, it's like everything else is just like a spit on the map, right? And you're like, well, that's absolutely
Yes,
wrong.
at least in German school.
Yeah, definitely in German schools, horrible when it comes to this. But it's also if you give this exercise to Americans, right? Americans, they're like, oh, America, like greatest nation of all time. So it's huge on the map, right? It's because of how we've been taught, right?
Yeah, Artem would be always right.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. They're taking a very different approach in this book. They start with Egypt, right? Then is India, then is Iran, then is Greece, then is China, right?
Oh, it's like old civilizations, or like is it current nations?
No, it's current nations, but it's like kind of like their history, right? Like
Oh.
what is like, but it's very condensed format, right? So it's like a lot of
No,
jumping.
because I'm wondering because these are the places where the oldest civilizations have been. Egypt, India, Iran, like
Yeah, I think it has to do with that. But then Ireland next doesn't. I feel it doesn't make too
yeah,
much
that
sense, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I first had the same thought, but I think there has been a preference because of. Actually, I don't know. This is
Or
a
it
good
can't be
question.
alphabetical also. Yeah, it can't be alphabetical.
No, cannot be either because then China would be before Egypt.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pattern is the question. No, the book is actually it's really good and it's like
Use
it's well written.
ChatGPT.
No. I want to read this just for the sake of reading it.
No,
I do
Stella,
enjoy
if I
it.
may come back to one point,
Yeah.
you mentioned the article of autonomy, and when reading it, I wasn't sure what's the meaning for us as token engineer. Should there be some prerequisite in order to understand the interrelationship between rules that are implemented by code and human behavior? Or what do you think about the background? I
Well,
bother with this kind of more philosophical style of article.
I
Could
think
you ask again? Like I'm wondering why are you asking in terms of autonomy?
Yes, I was wondering this article of autonomy in Wikipedia. I mean, it tells you a lot about different theoretical reasoning about autonomy. But honestly, I was wondering, what's the meaning for us as being token engineer? Is it some prerequisite in order to understand the interplay of rules made by code and then the possibilities that are there for human beings? Stella, please.
no. Maybe someone else has an answer. I'm just like Streber style right now.
I
Yeah, go.
I do have one, but
I mean, I have an
I mean,
idea myself.
Oh wait. Okay,
yeah, go
Grayscale
ahead,
wants
please. Yeah.
to. Okay, take this
Oh no,
one.
no. I mean,
Go. Really go.
the I guess what I got out of it, it's the same thing that kind of Roro was saying earlier, as far as you know, when you have when you are designing a system and you have to deal in different time frames, and then the ultimate goal after you get everything in order is you want it to run itself. So this, Wikipedia article is basically just, I guess like we said last week, it's a generalized place, just telling you exactly where, pattern development was to get to the point of things running on their own. So that's what I kind of got out of this whole thing.
I mean, my answer would have been something along the lines of I feel like autonomy is a central part of this because when we are designing, for example, even if we are writing smart contracts, in a smart contract we have certain ways in which people can interact with the system. So we are fixing what all you can do with the system, and therefore we're taking away autonomy from people. Like, for example, on the other extreme, like minors, we don't want to tell minors that, hey, you're supposed to mine, you don't have a choice, because we're not forcing them to do it. We want to give them autonomy to choose how much to mine, when to mine. They can shut their PCs off if they want to. So we want to give them autonomy to make decisions, but at the same time, we want to make it in such a way that the system benefits from it. So deciding what to enforce and what not to enforce, how much to enforce and what not to. How do we incentivize people to do certain things, given that we don't want to enforce it? I think these are the things that that's where I think it starts becoming very important to understand autonomy, incentives, and governance as a whole. I think that's where my brain is going.
Yeah, I think it also plays at the part that, we expect a certain degree of self-responsibility, which directly aligns with autonomy, from people who are using those systems, right? Because we know they are not perfect yet. We do know that. And I think by giving us this article, which is, very generally stating like different perspectives on autonomy. So, it's like here, right, it's different perspectives by Immanuel Kant, by Nietzsche, by Piaget, by Kohlberg, right, by Audi. All of this helps to form like more of a 360 like kind of perspective on like what autonomy is. Something that I was missing is speaking more about the culture of autonomy, right, in different societies. So I recently saw a video of a very young child that was, traveling in Tokyo's subway. And she was sitting right next to another white lady, let's just say, right? And so people who were visiting there, they thought like they were like mother and daughter. But then, the girl got out at the station by herself, and those two like travel bloggers, they kind of followed that girl, right? Just to understand like what's the thing with this. And finally, they come across a native who explains it that, in Japan, children are the collective responsibility of everyone. So this is why traveling even for very young children by themselves in Japanese subway is apparently very safe compared to like a lot of other countries, right? And this is a culture of autonomy, right? You teach children at a very young age to be independent, right? But at the same time, you teach your society that they are responsible to care for those children traveling by themselves. So this is like a part I want to say I was missing in this article. I felt there was not as much on the culture of autonomy in different, in different cultures or nations, right? Than I would have liked to see. It was more about like, specific perspective. Yeah, well, okay, done.
Yeah,
No, but,
great. Thank you all
yeah.
for your answers.
Yeah.
We did
Did
it.
it answer your question though, Lutra? Was that really what you were looking for? Or was there something specific?
Oh, I just wanted to get your opinion on it. I mean, my thought was if we implement some kind of rules, be it by code or be it by social norms, it's quite clear for me that is on the one hand side, it restrains your possibilities of actions, but on the other side, you allow certain kinds of actions. And I thought that was the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. Also, like from what Stella was saying about certain cultures, I feel like there are two ways to look at it, right? In one way, the more autonomy you give, and the more in systems like that, like Japan or whatever, we are hoping and we are raising the public awareness to be a certain way or whatever. But there's still a lot of hope and trust required there, and there'll always be bad actors, unfortunately. Like no matter what you do, there'll be some bad actors, and as long as the system can sustain those bad actors, I think it's okay. But the problem is there are many systems where just the incentives are such that you just can't um, give autonomy to people, and therefore you have to restrict autonomy. So I would say, like, if anyone's interested in this from a game theoretic perspective, it's very interesting to read this one term called the price of anarchy. And maybe you can Google this, Stella. Like, it's very fascinating because the lens through which you look at price of anarchy is very fascinating, where you're trying to see um, basically the argument is this, that if there's a benevolent dictator, like who actually cares about the system a lot, and they can dictate every person's actions, would the system be better off in that way, or would it be better off to let people do what they want to? And price of anarchy is a very fascinating. It's a number from 0 to 1 that you can calculate. And there are certain systems where the price of anarchy is very high, which means if you let people have the autonomy that they want, then those systems will actually just completely disassemble very quickly. Versus there are certain systems where uh, the price of anarchy is very low, which means that you can give people the autonomy. For one example would be traffic networks, like where if you could control every person how they move, you could actually improve traffic quite a bit. Like if you can say, okay, you just leave 5 minutes late, you do this. If we could control everybody, we would actually be able to make a better system. But we don't have the ability to do that. So there are many systems that you can study with this term, and actually just reading about how it's calculated, in what scenarios is it relevant, and uh, it's very fascinating. Even for social cultural systems, it's very fascinating to read about this, the price of anarchy.
That's very interesting. I think it's also a matter of balance, right? So on the one hand, you want to have the rules, like you said, to benefit the system, right? To ensure that it's beneficiary to the system. But at the same time, you want people to be engaged with your system. So you need to give them some autonomy, right? If there is no autonomy for them, then engagement will also go down.
That's why we like democracies over, like,
Yeah, but then
I mean,
you
that's
know
the
we
reason
have
we are moving towards
democracy,
it.
and then you only have 10% of people participate. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like there. I wonder, you know, if at any point we would come up with the perfect formula. I guess we won't, because the way we live, right, in different countries and even in different states or cities, it can differ so much, right? There are cultures in the world where women have no say at all, right? So that doesn't equal like when using a system. So it's you know, like like the traffic example, right? In Saudi Arabia, I think until this day, right, women are not allowed to drive a car. So, you know, but in other countries they are. So how do you balance that, right? It's a very strange example. I should find a better one. But the problem is that
No,
there's
but
already so much inequality to counter, right? Even when it comes to trust, as you mentioned. So where do you make the fresh cut? Kind of. This is what I keep wondering, you know, as we read through all of these articles.
no, I mean, I'm getting more and more hopeful, even though maybe I shouldn't be. But like, what I'm like, the more I'm getting into token engineering or things like this, like or ecosystem design and stuff, I'm realizing that the kind of systems that we are able to think of just by ourselves uh, are limited because we don't. First of all, we don't have the technology. We never had the technology to collect information from people who are actually involved in. Um, like who are actually affected by the system. There's just so many things that are flawed because of lacking of infrastructure. And I have a feeling that um, I think there's a term that Michael Zalgam and Jessica keep mentioning. I mean, the phrase that we don't need to make systems simpler so that we can use game theory. We need to make game theory and other tools like that we have better so that we can make better systems. And I think it seems like we are moving towards it. It seems like we are using many more math tools and all these modeling tools to actually think about more effective systems where we don't have to limit them to, oh, we can only vote once in 4 years because that's feasible. Oh, we can only, like, there's so many things that we are able to change because technology is getting better. And hopefully, those incremental changes in infrastructure can actually lead to better trust and better systems. Uh, for example, Bitcoin itself, I mean, it has many issues, but the fact that it's even possible that you can build a system which again has such a low price of anarchy, um, where you could have an economic system and where like money can be trusted in a way with completely autonomous actors is crazy. Like the fact that this is possible is insane, and the fact the only thing that led to it was cryptography and our movements towards using better math, better tools, and better technology. So I'm getting more hopeful over time that things will be better.
I would like to add, Ruham, it's about social scalability, right? And I think this technology enables us to have a higher degree of social scalability. You might know maybe this kind of Dunbar's number or Dunbar's model. So we only have, being a human being, the capacity to get in touch with around 100 or 150 people. And if it's more, yeah, it's way too much for us to handle and to be empathic and so on. And with this kind of technology, especially the trustless character that blockchain technology brings to us, we're able to scale on a social level much better than before.
Yeah, and it's hard to understate the value of it. Like, it feels very minimal, but the fact that this is possible is a sign that there are many more social technologies available and many more designs. Like, there's a much bigger design space that we hadn't considered before for designing social systems, for voting systems, just everything. And that's what's so exciting about the space, that we are thinking about solutions that honestly weren't even in the uh, realms of possibility just like 10 years back, 15 years back.
Wait, am I supposed to say something?
Please, someone say something.
Yeah, no,
No, there's a lot.
I thought this was the right time for Strata to step in.
yeah, right? Strata hasn't been saying much. Dude.
I was I was reflecting. You know, I've been thinking a lot recently. Can you hear me? Sorry. I was reflecting recently over the past week and a half, and what's become very apparent to me is that we are moving in the right direction, right? We're moving in the right direction because who wants to stay stagnant in life? I think just part of life is evolution. And when I was thinking about it, I was thinking, why are there so many challenges in the system? And the only thing I would just say is that one contribution to this conversation is the fact that there is immense fear by those who we look to for guidance. And so anytime we are looking at these new systems, these economic primitives, and just, Ron, you mentioned like game theory and all that, just the things that in the back of my mind that were were ever present when you were speaking. It was the fact that we need to address the fear that people have with these systems, and through greater transparency. And actually, there was something I wrote yesterday. Through greater clarity and transparency, something like that. I can't remember. I haven't had my coffee this morning, but essentially, it's us being able to understand where those fears are and address them. And I think we're moving in that step. We can't rush it. I just I'm so proud of the EU in terms of the MiCA legislation that they passed. And it's such a huge step forward for us in this community. The thing I would just say is that we're on the right path, and I just think that we need to do a better job of understanding the fears and addressing those fears by the individuals who we look for guidance for around our stability of these economies. I don't know if that made any sense. That was a bit of a ramble, but
I actually don't know about this legislation. No, I don't think I
Oh.
know.
no.
No.
Well, so I'm still I'm still bringing myself up to speed, but let me just give you the sort of 1,000-foot summary that I've been made aware of is that the EU signed a legislation or some law, and others in the EU can probably chime in better on this, is that it's called, I forgot what MiCA stands for again. Hold on a second here.
Markets in
Crypto. Yeah. Crypto, what's the A stand for?
assets, markets and crypto assets
Yeah.
regulation. And
There
they
you go.
passed it last or 10 days ago. It will be in place starting at, I guess, mid 2024.
That's right. And it's essentially, it gives clear direction for crypto assets in EU. And that's the extent of what I'll share, Rohan, because I'm still going through a lot of the what's been published. I haven't had a thorough time, and I don't want to misrepresent it. I think it'd be really good for us to. Oh, who's sharing this? Yeah. Well, that's actually not it, but I think it'd be interesting for us to discuss even next week and reviewing it, because it's a really huge step forward. For
Is it that it's giving us giving the crypto space more guidance as to how to legally?
it's essentially what it does is that it divides crypto assets into three categories. So the one is asset reference tokens, e-money tokens, and other crypto assets. And then what it's trying to do is just trying to create a framework that we can all folks within the EU jurisdiction can have a consistent treatment of how certain regulations will apply to the various tokens that they want to create. And so it's very big. It's very big. From my perspective, I don't know, like Lutra, like I know that you're in the EU too.
I might add something, but you're 100% right. They clearly defined different categories of crypto assets and the legal necessities to implement and to use them. And that's all over the EU. So if you, for example, think about the discussion, is ETH security or not? You might remember this nice video, The Grilling of Gary Gensler by Congress, and something like that, where he refused to give an answer to this. And they clearly now have a legal framework to define those assets and how to handle it. And I think the really promising point, at least from my point of view, is that the decentralized finance area is left out for innovation. And therefore, I think it's quite good a regulatory framework, and they are far ahead in comparison to regulation of crypto economic systems in the US, I would say.
Yeah, unfortunately, I would even say that right now the US is falling behind in this particular space significantly, right? Yeah, I agree with Lutra.
Do you think that the worry is that nations will lose the power of their currencies once you start legalizing? Because that seemed to be the worry that I felt, at least I was feeling from different countries.
I mean, they will lose autonomy.
That's right.
Right? At least the ones at the top. Yeah. And this is one of the most powerful, printing money or having control over the money supply. It's one of the most powerful tools that governments, e.g. your central bank, has at their disposal. Now there is an innovative threat to this kind of power constellation. It can be a disruptive innovation, yeah, for the whole monetary system as we know it since, let's say, 100 or 200 years. And who wants to lose his power?
Yeah, Lutra, like 100% agree. I'd even go back further. Since the beginning of time, we've all human beings have looked for ways to exert control over others to get them to do what they want them to do. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that or right with that. It's just, I do believe it goes back to Rohan, like, so I would like what Lutra said, 110% I agree. I would say it even goes back further to my comment about fear, and that fear is of change. And now, when in this new, I think in this new world, the fear is the fact that we like for hundreds or whatever, how many years, thousands of years, we've had this system, like whatever asset-backed system or fiat, whatever you want to call it, and then we used it as a way to control others. And now we're realizing that, well, what are we seeing with the BRIC countries, right? They've decided to move away from, they're trying to move away from the U.S. as the reserve currency, which everybody has a right to do what they want to do, I believe. But at the same time, I think that it's all, I think everything is what we're seeing. To answer your question, it's driven through a sense of fear of change. And that's why I think I'm very optimistic that, right, like having a jurisdiction as large as the EU, right, to provide that level of clarity, that is very huge. It means people say we're in a bear market, right? I say this is the beginning of a bull market for us in this world.
Yes, and we're all gonna make it.
And we're all gonna make it. That's right.
I guess we cannot get rid of the degens within, right? It's not a thing.
You just have a purpose, right? Like, you know, I
They do.
experimented with degen activities, right? Like, you know, like yield farming
You
and
didn't
stuff.
experiment. Let's be straight here with everyone. You are a degen. Like 100%.
I was, and then I went through degen AA, or not, no, degen
Detox?
Anonymous.
Detox?
The first step in admitting you're a degen. No, what is it? The first step is admitting you're a degen. So yeah,
And
you want to know
already in
something?
denial.
You're already in denial. You know, I just think it's I think every, like, I think freedom is to be like, I think crypto allows a lot of people to be who they really want to be in the world. And with that freedom, you know, I think every type of where's the gentleman who shared that article with me last time? I forgot his name. Is it not Grayscale? It was
Wojtek.
Wojtek?
No, it was not
Stratos?
Wojtek.
No, it was he shared a book.
Supernova. Supernova.
Yes, Supernova. He shared a book, and it was about the archetypes. And I think that there are so many different archetypes within our community, and I think they all serve a purpose. And I think, you know, what's really beautiful, and I think it's going to change with crypto, is that there was free markets, right? Like, a free market is about boom and bust cycles. It's about boom and bust cycles. It's, you know, there's nobody there to sort of stop certain activities, and we see that in crypto. And I think that that's going to change. I think that free market narrative will eventually change when larger capital flows into it. But I think that everybody deserves a place in this new world, and including degens. So shout out to all my ex-degens. I'm not a degen anymore. I've progressed to a responsible citizen. I don't know what that means, but whatever. But
It's the opposite of degen, regen, like regenerative. No.
degen, yeah.
Oh,
I like. Let's say that
region?
we're regens.
Oh.
We're regens. That's cool.
Playing with words.
Yeah. But yeah, like, any other thoughts about what we said? Like, I'd love to hear from, you know, other people, like you know, Grayscale or Artem and Dashing and.
Artem cannot speak today. He wrote that in the chat, but he's excited to share his opinions next time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm just listening to the whole conversation. I mean, I'm trying to take it all in, and I was actually like illuminating to to hear. My comment about the getting the I guess the rules straight in the EU is I think is a big deal. United States is going to lose out on a lot, not having some type of guidelines, which is unfortunate. But hey, it's a global world, and you do business where it's good for you. So.
The one thing I would just add is that I was reflecting as I was listening to others is that you're I think rules are required for mass adoption, right? And I think that the true crypto maximalists will fight that, and they will say we don't need rules, right? Because what do rules bring? Rules and regulation create intermediaries. And what does that mean? There's no longer free markets because now you have intermediaries to backstop and whatnot. So I think that there's this battle of is it correct to say, Lutra, ethos? Battle of ethos? I don't know if
Could
that's
say
correct.
yes.
Yeah. So there's a battle of ethos happening. And I guess really what's important, maybe my ethos when I first went down this rabbit hole was for no rules and no regulations, but now I've evolved. I think this is such a beautiful technology. I think that it's just necessary for mass adoption for us to sort of transition. And so I think we'll consistently see this battle happening
Yeah.
and this fight. But
If
I'm
I
very
may add something to that.
Go ahead,
Um,
Lutra.
Thank you. I get reminded about the punk rock scene, right? It started purely as a subgroup of society, yeah? That everybody has seen a punk and the funny hairs and all the stuff about. It's no longer really purely a subgroup. And in order to get to mainstream, you have somehow to adapt, especially in our space, to adapt to certain kinds of safety standard or rules. Now they are battling. On the one hand side, you have the really OG Degans coming back from, let's say, the cypherpunks, yeah, they say, oh, privacy is our overall goal or something like that, but you
Yeah.
won't get to mass adoption with those high standards. So if you want to go to the mainstream, you have to lead this kind of subgroup.
May I add on top of that?
Please go ahead.
So the problem with that is, though, the message, the original message, has been completely diluted, right? Punk today is a fashion statement. It's not necessarily that a lot of people connected with its original message. So that's also a problem, right? And
That's
I
the
feel
price
like
of
as
mass adoption.
I feel strata, right? In the sense of like, okay, yeah, we've been evolving as as you dive deeper, as you take part in different DAOs, right? You realize that not everyone can be trusted when the same time of autonomy. It's just not a thing, right? Because, and here comes the reasoning behind it, because we are simply not used to it, right? We're not
Human
used to,
beings.
most people in most societies are not being raised to think critical and think for themselves. We're being educated in a system that tells us literally what to think and what to do, depending on the culture we grow up in. So that makes it indefinitely more hard for people to adapt now to systems who are saying like, hey, yo, you're free to do whatever. Most people can absolutely not handle that, right? Because they don't know how. So instead of relying on, governments, and I don't want to say here if I like it or if I don't like it, right? There's no such thing for me. I think there's just the fact that this has now happened. But I do think that we should invest more time in, instead of just building systems. I think I mentioned this when it came to governance before. I think it's really important to also build the way towards using a system, be it education, right? Be it the proposal, for example, in Alana, we have now a proposal structure framework. A lot of people didn't put out proposals because they didn't know how to. They are absolutely overwhelmed with the idea of writing a proposal. So we gave them a framework, right? Which tells them, okay, you have to address all of these 10 points, then you have a proposal. Congratulations, you made it, right? But instead of relying and going back to like our old ways, let's iterate. Let's see where the actual problem lies, right? And iterate on that problem and come up with something new that helps people to evolve. Instead of relying back on the stuff that brought them into the mess in the first place. Because governments have put us in the situation as societies to not be able to think for ourselves anymore and act for ourselves anymore, right? And it makes me so unhappy, not to say angry and fucking annoyed, right? To look at these regulations because we're relying back on these old structures for something that's coming up fresh and new out of the cooking book, right?
Yeah.
It feels wrong in so many ways. Sorry, yeah, but okay, now it became very opinionated. Sorry.
No need to sorry. But maybe we just need new ways of finding rules. Maybe we need some kind of new regulations, not using the old ones, trying to have regulations that are much more adequate to this new evolving space.
Yeah, but
There
it
is hope.
means
I
not
can add to
relying on
this.
centralized structures. It meaning giving people tools that they can use and learn how to use for themselves, right? And we just lay out the way towards using these tools. But if we put centralized entities back in charge, then we have not made any change. There is no progress. There's just like the pretend of progress.
I have a hunch that this is an intermediate step. That I mean, like for example, okay, I'll support my argument by saying that I think, for example, cypherpunks and all of these, the initial movement about privacy, Vedai's articles that we had read initially and stuff like that. I think a lot of it is about privacy, and I feel like privacy was looked at as a binary, like 0 or 1. And I feel like we have the technology to even bypass that now. We have the ability to, because a lot of times when we talk about privacy, we're actually talking about context, where it's like we want certain information to be shared or not shared based on the context in which it's relevant. It's not really about complete privacy or not privacy.
Agreed.
And I feel like we are building technologies to address that too. We are building like certain ways of dealing with data, which you can turn off and on, and you have the ability to do that now. And I feel like when those kind of tools start coming out, we have the potential ability to have centralized systems, while like who have our data, but also our ability to make sure whether they can use it in particular ways or not. And I think maybe that changes
I mean, look,
the entire landscape. Yeah.
with the privacy thing, you know what would already change stuff? Like, sure, like I want to give you my data, but you know, you're making money with my data. Why you're not paying me for it? That would already change so many things, you know? A lot of people, they honestly, they don't care if they sell their data. But if they could
No, I
make
feel like it's much more than that. Like, of course, money, yes,
Yeah,
that
but
solves
this
one part of the picture, right?
could
But
be
like, for
already one
example,
step.
I want Facebook to have my data, but I don't want it to sell it to certain companies, and I wanted to sell it to others. All of
Be
those
selective about
levers.
it. If I want
Yeah,
to, if I care, like then I want to be select. I want to have these opportunities, but also,
exactly.
I mean, facing everything we're facing right now. I don't know how much you're following all the big tech layoffs, right? I've been following quite attentively, and I have to say, like, that's not a great new standard to set, right? Like in the face of an emerging technology, just randomly firing people and pretending like this technology can already take over when it, in my opinion, I mean, Rohan, you know more about it, right, in more detail, but I want to claim it's premature to fire people. Like this technology can right now not take over for humans, right? And it would have been setting a much stronger standard and built much more trust with consumers worldwide, right? To actually put out a better standing and rule this like with more awareness, right, about like people. So yeah, I feel like there's just like centralized entities. I'm so sorry, I get really worked up about it, but yeah, thank you, Rohan, for sharing though. Phew. Okay, anyone
No,
else
I
wants
guess,
to say anything?
yeah, I think
Thank
others
you.
should jump in. We are hogging too much of the time.
Oh, deep discussion once again.
Yeah, it's true. I guess we could also end it for today. Well,
Yeah.
actually, this is also why
What about
surrounding
our
is-
homework?
Yeah, so let's do that. Let's go to our favorite website in the world.
Should we
Also,
prepare the whole chapter on computer-aided governance?
I think that's the next one, isn't it? Let me check actually. Yeah, that's the next one. Complexity theory, organization, complex adaptive systems.
oh, I love this. I will take. I think I'll take a good chunk of the time tomorrow. I mean, next week.
Should we try double between those two and see how far we get?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. I mean, we can try. We probably don't finish everything. It's fine. Right? But I really enjoy that we're
No, I think
taking...
there are videos too, yeah? Those videos will be long.
What?
The videos too, and those videos will be long, the block sense ones.
Oh, these
Yeah,
ones?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think they're going to be very
But yeah,
helpful.
but I think we should read
Everything
them.
has been very
Yeah.
helpful so far. I don't know how you guys feel, but to me, like reading through all of this, even though, here and there, obviously I'm aware of, the knowledge that is provided, but it's been really helpful in like restructuring also my own mind for my own project. And yeah, I think it's important we do the reading. It's just, it takes some time.
I
Sorry, guys.
agree. I agree.
Good. Good,
Also,
good.
I want to hear Kiran's perspective on today's conversation. I just want to know, like, for a newcomer,
All right.
is this
How has it
confusing?
been?
Like, yeah.
No, no, it wasn't. It wasn't too confusing. My biggest issue was, it was mentioned a little bit earlier about creating systems and then controlling, ideally like controlling the narrative by like one individual if it was possible. I think that was for some archaic perspective. But the other side of that, what I saw was, I want to know like whether or not it was possible to create a system where the variables could be dynamic in a way where they can be introduced based on how the system is reacting to a specific situation. For example, when you create like typically one of the bigger problems with creating governance, any kind of governance protocol is the variables that you state may not necessarily fully cover all
Yeah.
of the actual variables in that system. So right now, a lot of the systems that I've seen, they're all like set in stone or definitively defined, and they're
Yeah.
not really that dynamic. I was curious as to see if there was any way to create a system that allows the introduction of new variables, but the problem with that is you don't really know how those variables are going to react and how would that integrate with the existing system. So that's what I thought, yeah, this fifth lesson was going to be about. So it was
I think
interesting to hear that.
it will move towards it. It also has already, like, where there were sections that spoke about the governance space, and maybe that's the topic you should read about. It's about the space of governance that you want people to have the ability to vote on or decide on, while keeping the other things static. So it's the choice that you're making as to what you want to keep as, I don't know, like dynamic versus static, and then what voting mechanisms or what kind of decision-making tools are there then for the community to make decisions on those dynamic variables. So that the idea is called governance space that BlockSense talks about. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll check that out. And then the next part was about how do you determine whether or not the structure you've created is actually working? Like an example that comes to mind is the paperclip maximizer, where you tell them you want to make paperclips, but then eventually it ends up like, okay, you can maximize the amount of paperclips you want to make if you use all the atoms in the universe, which includes humans. So killing humans would help. Obviously, that's an extreme example of like how that would be negative, but then it's very difficult to tell when it becomes destructive. So even if something looks destructive in the short term, it may not be destructive in the long term. But
Right.
if you go too long, it might be destructive again.
I
Right.
think
I think
So
yeah.
you
Stella,
wanna,
go ahead.
yeah, I have no
I mean,
how to tackle that.
I think one secret sauce is definitely getting more perspectives on the project or the products you want to build, right? And I think it's also being mentioned in the articles. It's so important to try and dumb it down for some people, right? So we get more perspectives on like what are we actually building, and do people enjoy this, right? Do they even want to interact with those systems? This is what I meant with, you know, designers and engineers. They are not so far apart from each other, because sometimes we end up building for the sake of building and finding out if something works. It's just like kind of inherent to our nature, I feel. And instead of always submitting to this, right? How about trying to dumb it down for your mom, right? And tell her about what you're building and see if, you know, she would feel excited about something like this. It's a very bad example. Obviously, you should do that with the core customer group you're trying to target with this, right? But sometimes it really helps to get perspectives. Like I do this in my team all the time. I tell them what we're, you know, the secret stuff we're like saucing up together. And then I bring it to them. And because they have a very different perspective, they're like, wait, what? Why are you not doing it this way? And I'm like, oh, fucking hell, I should have asked sooner, you know? So sometimes it makes a lot of sense to involve people who are not from your field, who don't necessarily share your opinions. Obviously, they need to share your values, but maybe not your opinions, right? It helps.
No, yeah, I mean, like on a philosophical level, what Stella's saying is true. But if you want to go into like on a very practical level, like how do you build an optimization function that actually solves for the alignment problem?
That's
It's
exactly
like yeah, it's very hard to tell. It's obviously an unsolved problem, but
Yeah.
certain ways that you could potentially think about tackling it is could be like have multi-objective functions where you're not actually optimizing for a single objective like fully dead on. You can have a couple humans in the loop, maybe like human reinforced learning kind of thing. But I don't know what extent you can actually even do that. All of these questions are very hard, and that
And they're very
I mean
custom.
yeah, they're very custom
feel.
and there's no direct solution.
Yeah.
Although I would say that there are ways to model and simulate through which you can at least do a better job at predicting what could happen. So one way is that you actually run simulations where like you let people do everything that they could do and then see whether the system breaks. Like just let them do any irrational action, even just every action in a. So you just make a digital twin and just run hundreds and thousands of scenarios, and you can find out where the system breaks. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is then start putting assumptions on their behaviors as to what's reasonable actions that humans will take. And I think that's when it starts. You can start making more relevant systems, I guess. But yeah, I mean, still, it's an open question, and I don't think anyone's solved this.
yeah.
But there are ways to think about it. There are ways to think about it, and I think I'm not sure if module 5 is the right one, but you can study about. In fact, I'll send you links. There's a YouTube playlist on the alignment problem and how people have tried to solve it and failed miserably, because every reasonable thing you can think of fails every time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
put
no,
it in the
that
chat.
would be really helpful.
Thank you.
The
way
guy's
that
called Robert Miles. He does amazing work in AI alignment problems.
Okay, I'll check him out. And the way that I thought could possibly be like a beginning was have no static variables, like everything is dynamic, even the ones that seem very obvious. And then you have to be able to measure uh, success rate for a given time frame. So, for example, if you think decisions or fast decisions like that can be made within, let's say, like 5 days, can be measured to be successful at like X percentage or whatever uses your baseline, and then if you have something like if you try to make a decision within a year, this is statistically the percentage of success rate for that kind of decision. So you can figure out what percentage you want to maintain, and then you optimize it from there, starting off from uh, quicker decisions, and then you work up from that level, which is something that I've seen done by a few uh, automated market makers, but I
Okay.
haven't really seen it deployed like on a very large scale.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we are running experiments all over the place currently about which systems work and which don't. And I think it's just time will tell like which ones actually function in the long run. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you're there even after reading Module 1, because I think Module 2 and 3 are the ones that actually guide you through a process of thinking about metrics and optimization functions and stuff. So I think you'll really enjoy the next few
He's
um,
ahead of the
chapters.
curve.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to module 2.
yeah.
Okay,
All
guys.
right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see you next week. Reading as discussed, and have a good weekend, everyone. Bye bye.
You too. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Have a good weekend.
Bye,